Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our gentle yoga class. Today we are on the fourth niyama in our series, the yamas and niyamas. And this one is called Svadhyaya, which means self-study. Say it with me now. Svadhyaya. Svadhyaya means self-study. So go ahead and find a comfortable seat or maybe a lying down position, something that can help you ground and center and arrive. So imagine the past fading away and the future, allow it to wait. In the book by Deborah Adele on the idea of Svadhyaya, she says about self-study, the path of growth is not a straight line. It does not look anything like what we think it should look like. In fact, often our belief system of what growth looks like is the very thing that stops our growth. What we think we know stops our inquiry. The Buddhists remind us to have a beginner's mind, to know that we don't know. It is this stance of humility that opens the door to learning and revelation. So if this idea of self-study speaks to you, feel free to use it today as an intention for your practice. And then we will start lying down, but of course you're always welcome to modify anything. And perhaps you have some props handy. Maybe I have a blanket, a bolster, 2 blocks, and a strap, and then a chair. So you can always do things from your chair as well. Feel free to make your way in your own time and in your own way onto your back if you're not there already. And we'll have a block or two close by. And then you can also have a strap handy. From this place on your back, you can walk your feet as wide as the mat and then begin to allow your knees to gently sway from side to side. Maybe stretching your arms out into a letter T shape. And you might turn your gaze in the opposite direction as your knees. As you gracefully turn your head from side to side, you could think about this idea of saying no, giving yourself permission to use the word no as a complete sentence with grace, saying no to what no longer serves you, allowing yourself to know what is best for you. And then we'll come back to center and you can walk your heels in and then go ahead and use your strap if you like to hug your knees in towards your chest. If you don't have a strap, you can always just hug your knees with your hands. I kind of like to bring the strap around my shins and then go ahead and start to draw a nice big circle with the knees. See about breathing into your low back and giving it a gentle massage. And when you feel the time is right, you can go ahead and reverse the direction of those knee circles. And then we'll come back to center and keep your knees lifted. Go ahead and hug your elbows in towards your knees. So you're in a bit of a dead bug position. You can stay right here, energetically drawing your knees and elbows towards each other, pressing your low back towards the mat. And you can always stay just where you are, or maybe you invite a little bit of a cross body movement by lifting your left foot and your right hand up towards the sky, and then returning them to the starting position, and then go ahead and switch to the opposite hand and leg. Thinking about like a marionette string dancing these limbs. You might feel some engagement in your core. See if you can still try to take some nice deep breaths, relaxing any other areas in the body that might be over efforting, maybe through the jaw or the shoulders. When you feel ready, you can release this action. Slide your legs long, reach your arms overhead, and try and find a nice long body stretch. Maybe invite some nice gentle movement into the ankles, into the wrists by drawing some nice big circles, and then switching the direction of those circles. And then when you're ready, you can glide the heels back in, plant your feet on the mat, hug your elbows in towards your rib cage, pointing your fingertips up towards the sky. We're going to take a few baby bridges. So actually just starting by not even really peeling the hips off of the mat, just rocking the pelvis gently forward and back. So think about pressing your low back into the mat as you point the tailbone up towards the knees, and then we'll peel the low back up as you tilt the pelvis forward. Just feel into that movement. And then you can start to grow the movement a little bit bigger by pressing into the heels and launching your hip points up off of the ground, pressing into the heels as you lift into bridge. On the next exhale, allow the spine to gracefully descend one vertebrae at a time, just like a string of pearls. And go ahead and follow the pace of your own breath, exhaling as you lift into bridge. Or find the rhythm that feels right for you. Does it feel better to inhale as you lift? And exhale maybe as you lower. Maybe try it both ways. See what feels more natural to you. The next time you lift up into bridge, you can either stay here and find a bind underneath the body. So you would release the hands down and maybe shimmy the shoulders underneath you to interlace your hands under your low back. Or you could grab a block and find a supported bridge, sliding the block underneath the low back to rest. And here, maybe you find an additional stretch for the hip flexor by go ahead and release your left foot long, maybe keeping the support on your right foot to stretch through your front of your left hip. Breathe into that space, and then maybe go ahead and switch sides when you feel ready, opening up through the front of the hip. Perhaps one side at a time, or if it feels okay, you could try both together. I'm finding it better one side at a time. Breathing into the front of the hip. And then when you're ready, coming back to your supported bridge or your active bridge, wherever you're at, you can lift the hips and release the block from underneath you. Maybe lift the heels as you roll the spine down one vertebrae at a time. And then we'll go ahead and bump the hips over to the left, stack the knees over to the right, and find your bigger version of a twist here. Maybe extend the arms into a letter T shape, turning your gaze over towards your right hand as your knees stack over to the left. Opening up through the side of the rib cage, maybe. Breathing into the areas where you feel sensation, even if they're a little surprising, not quite what you expect. We'll take one more nice deep breath in our twist, and then you can float your right hand up and over the body, roll onto your left side, and maybe you either prop your head up on your hand, or I have my head resting on a block. You guys see, I guess you can't really quite see that because I've blocked myself with the flowers. Let me slide down a little bit. Here we go. So I just have my temple resting on a block. We're going to do some strengthening for the hips. So let's try a different version of our clamshells by lifting the whole entire leg to be parallel. Just changing it up for variety's sake. You might see and notice how this feels different in your body. You could always go back to the traditional version and just observe the difference. And by traditional, I mean the ones where your heels are glued together. Send your breath and your gratitude down into your hip joint. And just know that this effort is going to pay off in the form of more support and strength for supporting your knee. When you feel enough fatigue there in your muscles, go ahead and slide your knees back together, and then we'll lift and lower that top knee down to the ground to help lengthen through the side of the hip. You could turn this into a twist and maybe our favorite cat chasing its tail by just leaning the shoulder back just to find some length along. Is that the right side? If you want to further find that twist and maybe a bind here, you could reach down and grab for your bottom foot. Maybe get a stretch for the quad. Remembering that everything is optional. Just allowing yourself to play around, practicing Svadhyaya, self-study. We'll take one more nice deep breath here. Of course, it's your practice, so you can always choose to stay a little longer. When you're ready, go ahead and release your foot, release the toes, and we'll roll back onto the back. And this time we're going to get ready for the other side. So go ahead and bump your hips over to the left this time, stacking your knees over to the right to find your twist, allowing your shoulders to rest heavy, just giving yourself a moment to unwind. softening into the earth, breathing into the areas of sensation. And then when you feel ready, we'll roll onto our right side. Maybe you bring a block to rest underneath your head or prop your head up on your hand. And then you can start whatever variation of clamshell you like on this side. So maybe you're lifting and lowering your top leg so that it stays parallel with your bottom leg. That's one option. You could always glue the heels together and try traditional clamshell. Maybe you switch it up and try both just to see how each movement changes the sensation in your body. When you feel that you've had enough exertion, you can always slide your knees back so now they're in a straight line with the body. Lift and lower the top knee so you can find that stretch through the hip. Maybe the side of the leg, the IT band. And feel free to turn this into a twist by leaning the top shoulder back. Maybe you feel like reaching around to grab hold of the bottom foot with your top hand, if that feels good. Breathing into any discomfort and giving yourself permission to not go to your absolute edge, remembering that everything is optional. Take one more nice deep breath. Remembering you can always give yourself permission to stay a little longer. Sometimes when I'm in a yoga class, I'm like, oh, I'll catch up with you. I'm good here for now. That's okay too. Take one more nice deep breath if you like. Go ahead and release the foot. And then we'll roll onto the back and either rock and roll up and down the length of your spine, or you can roll all the way onto your belly and then press up to either a seat or tabletop. So that's just basically a decision you want to make based on how do you feel about being on your hands and knees? If you prefer to be cross-legged on a seat, that's fine too. We're going to do some stretching through the spine in cat and cow. So go ahead and inhale, lift the heart forward. Exhale, round the spine back. You can take a few rounds of breath following the pace of your own breath. Maybe after a few rounds of your cat and cow, you want to start to draw a circle, tracing the inside of a hula hoop. And maybe it would feel good for the head and neck to kind of follow along. Maybe churning in the opposite direction. Or if that didn't make sense, I just kind of mean like when your spine is in one direction, your head might be kind of following along a little bit after the fact. And then go ahead and reverse the direction of your churning. Thinking about scraping out the inside of a peanut butter jar. Allowing yourself a moment to pause anywhere that feels particularly interesting or juicy. Take one more nice deep breath wherever you're at, and then we'll find our neutral. If you're on your hands and knees, you might take a moment to bring your big toes to touch, open your knees wide, and sink your hips back into a child's pose. If you're seated, but you're wanting to avoid being on the knees for any sensitivity, let's go ahead and just move our way into a downward dog. So very carefully stepping your feet up, lifting your knees, maybe finding some support for underneath your hands, either on blocks or maybe the seat of a chair. And you can allow yourself to pedal your heels side to side. If you're in your child's pose, take your time to meet up with us in down dog. And you can kind of sashay your hips, walking your dog a little bit side to side. And eventually we're going to make our way to a forward fold. So you can kind of walk your hands to your feet or your feet towards your hands. You might bring your hands onto blocks, press them anywhere along your legs, either on your shins or above your knees, and we'll press them to support. Lift and lengthen the spine up halfway. Exhale to forward fold. Inhale here for halfway lift. Exhale to forward fold. One more time. After that next forward fold, go ahead and spring load the knees, and we'll sweep our arms up towards the sky. Rise up to standing, and then bring your hands to your heart center and lay your hands right on top of your heart, closing down your eyes or softening your gaze to listen for the sound or maybe just the sensation of the rhythm of your heartbeat. And then when you're ready, you can blink your eyes open. We're going to step now into a warrior two. So your right, what is this? My right foot is forward, my left foot is back. And you can imagine you're kind of on a tightrope here. So your front heel is pointing an arrow back towards your back arch. And then your torso is facing the long side of your mat. You can bring your hands to your hips here and sink as much as you'd like into that front knee. So to make it more gentle, you kind of back off. To make it a little more challenging, you can really sink into that front leg. From here, we'll float the arms forward and back and then turn the gaze over your front fingertips. Take one more nice deep breath here, and then we'll lengthen the front leg. Bring your right hand to the inseam of your leg. Float the left arm up as you glide the left hand down. Now you could also land that left hand on a block or press against your leg anywhere to find Trikonasana triangle pose. Maybe to challenge your balance a little bit, you might turn your gaze up towards your lifted hand. Take one more nice deep breath here in triangle. And then on the next exhale, let's sweep the left hand down to your other block. And now we're going to pivot so that your feet are on train tracks. So you can kind of heel toe your right foot over, start to hop the left leg in, and find a forward fold. Feel free to stay in your forward fold, or maybe you want to take a down dog in between. And if you're in your forward fold, you might ragdoll here by wrapping your hands around your opposite elbows and just swaying a little bit side to side. You might bend into one knee for support. When you're ready, we'll come back to center. You can press into your legs or into blocks. Inhale to lift and lengthen the spine up halfway. Exhale to forward fold. And go ahead and take 2 more rounds just like this. Inhaling to lift and lengthen up halfway. Exhale to forward fold. After that third round, you can spring load the legs, sweep the arms up and around. Exhale, draw the hands into the heart center. And just take a moment to pause in mountain pose Tadasana. Either listening and feeling for your heartbeat, or relaxing your arms at your sides. Taking a moment to rest and find center. For a moment, allow the earth to rise and meet you and feel the energy from the earth rising up through your feet, energizing through your legs, your torso, your internal organs, shoulders, your arms, and then all the way up to your head. You might sense a rainbow glow up through all of your spinning energy bodies, all of these chakras. They say we have 7 energy bodies, and they look like a rainbow of light. And then go ahead and blink your eyes open, and we're going to get ready for our second side of our warrior 2. So you can step the left foot forward. I'm going to bring my blocks here so that I have them for support. Imagine your feet are on a tightrope. So you're positioning that front foot forward in line with the back arch of the foot. And then you can turn your torso towards the long edge of your mat, grow your arms forward and back, and then gaze over your front fingertips. Feel yourself here, rooted in the present, connected to the past behind you, but keeping your sight set towards the future. Allow your shoulders to melt away from your ears. And then we're going to find triangle pose. So you can lengthen the front leg without locking the knee, bumping the back hip back. You can glide your front arm down the inseam of your leg any amount, and maybe lift your top hand. You might even gaze up for triangle. Trikonasana. On the next exhale, we'll swim that hand down and then see about lifting your back heel. So now your feet are on train tracks and you're in a high lunge. And then you can walk your feet forward to find a forward fold. From here, let's all come into a downward dog, or you can always skip that and come into a tabletop. We're going to make our way onto our belly, and maybe you want to make your way onto your belly coming through a plank. And my preference is a forearm plank. So you can lay your forearms on the ground, walk your knees back so that your belly is hovering over the earth. And whenever you feel ready to give yourself a break from that effort, go ahead and land the belly. And we'll come into Sphinx pose with the elbows underneath the shoulders, heart lifting through the front of the arms. And when you're ready, we'll soften all the way down to crocodile pose. So either stacking your palms, maybe making a pillow with your fork for your forehead, or if that's too low, you could stack your fists and make a nice little pillow to rest your forehead. And you can stay right here, or maybe you bend the knees and allow the hips to sway, or the heels rather, to sway from side to side, feeling maybe a nice massage along the quads, along the belly. When you're ready, soften your feet back down to the ground. We'll lift the head, slide the hands back, and then turn your gaze over to the right, landing your left temple either on the mat, or if that feels too far away, you could always slide a block underneath the temple. We're going to play around with a flying superhero position, locust pose. So when you're ready, we'll inhale, lift the head, lift the shoulders, maybe float the arms and the legs to balance on the belly for locust. On the next exhale, you can turn your gaze to the left, soften your right temple down to the mat or to a block, and take a moment to really allow yourself to delight in a time of rest. Now, option 2, continue that Shalabhasana, same locust pose, or you could interlace your hands now at your low back. Squeeze your shoulder blades together and just lift your torso with your feet on the ground. Maybe you keep your hands interlaced at your low back, or you could start to peel them away, squeezing the shoulder blades together. And on the next exhale, you can release that, stack the palms, and once more return to your Makrasana crocodile. Taking some nice deep breaths. Now we're going to do a little bit to open through the chest and the shoulders. So from here, you can reach your left arm on the ground directly behind you as you roll onto your left side. So this will feel like a nice, I love this opening through the front of the chest, front of the shoulder. So my left shoulder is on the ground, my left arm is directly behind me, and if it feels too intense, you don't have to roll all the way onto your side. Just go as far as feels right for you. I'm using the block also as a pillow underneath my head to help lift the earth towards me. Now you can keep your legs stacked here, or if you want to deepen the stretch, you might bend your top knee and touch your toes behind your bottom leg. Or another option is to find that bind, almost like we did in cat chasing its tail, for another quad stretch. So maybe you reach down to grab hold of your ankle and just allow your knee to hover over the opposite knee, keeping yourself stacked all along the right side, stacking over the left side. as best you can. We'll take one more nice soothing breath here. And then when you're ready, you can gently release the foot if you're in the bind. Stack the hips once more. Roll back onto the belly and take a moment to rest in between sides. So allow the tissues to come back. Allow yourself to rehydrate just like you're squeezing out a sponge in your twist. And just observe for a moment the differences from left to right. You're going to get ready to do that same thing on the other side. So you can creep the right fingertips directly beside you to the right as you roll onto your right side. Go ahead and wedge a block maybe underneath your head or your temple. You can leave the legs stacked here or bend the top knee to touch the toes down to deepen the stretch. Or maybe you find that bind by bending the knee, reaching down with your hand to grab hold of the ankle. Remembering that all of these things are optional. See what feels right for you. Whenever you feel ready, you can release the foot, roll onto the belly, come back into your crocodile shape, and just allow your tissues to rehydrate. Now we're going to try the opposite approach, more of a thread the needle. So you're going to come up into your Sphinx pose with your elbows underneath your shoulders. And then option 2, include a little bit of an inner thigh stretch. So from here, you might bring your right knee out to the side in a frog leg. And then we're going to weave the right hand under. So I'm going to press into the left arm and lift the elbow up off the ground. And then start to weave the right arm underneath. So you're coming into a thread the needle. This one is nice because it's off the knees. And then just to give my head a place to rest, you can either rest it on your arm or maybe you prop your head up onto a block. So my left arm is kind of more in a seal position, pressing up. If any of this feels too intense, remember you can always back off, or maybe you omit the part with the frog leg. See if you can soothe yourself here with your breath by practicing your ujjayi breathing. Breathing into the areas of the body where you feel sensation. When you're ready to come out of this pose, you can press into your left hand to lift your head, unthread the needle, come back into your Sphinx arms with your elbows underneath your shoulders, and then release the foot and leg back to center. Take a moment to pause here in your Sphinx. And then we'll get ready for the other side. So I'm kind of rolling onto my right side to bring my left knee out to the side, opening up into a frog leg. So that leg is at 90 degrees. And then press into the right hand to lift and make space to weave the opposite hand under. So you're threading the left arm under, and then maybe resting your head on your arm or on a block. Take a nice deep breath wherever you're at, noticing whatever modifications you want to make. Make it comfortable and sustainable. Using your breath to help soothe you and help you relax and settle. Personally, I feel like I could stay here all day, but when you feel ready to transition, you can press into your right hand, lift yourself up to unweave, come back into your Sphinx arms with your elbows stacked underneath your shoulders, and then free your left foot. Ow, just kicked the chair. Try not to do that. And come back into Sphinx. When you're ready, we'll press up to a child's pose. So you can lift yourself up, come onto hands and knees for child's pose. Remember, you can always pad underneath the knees or skip the child's pose and come onto your seat if you really just want to avoid being on the knees. If you're skipping child's pose, maybe you want to do a Supta or a Baddha Konasana, not a Supta Baddha Konasana, Baddha Konasana with the feet together, knees apart, coming up into a seat, and then hinging forward to melt over your legs. Take a nice deep breath wherever you're at. And if you're in your bound angle pose with your feet together, maybe you can offer your feet a little bit of love and kindness. Just feeling the temperature of your feet. Maybe offering your feet a little rub. We're going to all come onto our seats next. And then, so make your way onto your seat. And then we'll do what's called, we'll do that same kind of windshield wiper here, but with coming into a seat. So I'm just going to move these props from out behind me. So you have some space to lean back. You can bring your feet out to the side and then let your knees fall over to the left. Inhale to bring them up to center and exhale, float them over to the right. So you can keep doing it just like this, or you might start to lift your back hand and then reach around like you're going to reach for your right hand is reaching over the left knee towards the back of the room. You could stay right here, and maybe you even use a block underneath your left hand, or press into your left hand to lift your hips. This is called stargazer. When you're ready, you can lower your hips, float over to the other side, press the right hand down, maybe reach the left hand up and back, and you might launch by pressing into your hand and lifting your hips. Go ahead and move at the pace of your own breath, and maybe take a few more rounds from side to side. You might find that you're traveling as you do this. forward for stargazer. Twisting around to the opposite side, pressing into the earth, lifting the hips, reaching around up and back. Of course, the lift is optional. Maybe one more time on each side. And then when you're ready, we'll come swing the feet around. So now you're on the long side of your mat. Go ahead and bring a block in between your hands if you like. And we're going to practice boat pose here. So you can keep your feet on the mat, your hands maybe either with or without the block, and then start to lift the heart as you lean back, creating a boat-like shape, using the strength of your core to keep you upright. You could also hinge your hands behind your thighs for support, or maybe you lift your shins. So find your version of boat. And then whenever you're ready, we're going to roll all the way onto the back, hug the knees in, and either hug behind the knees or walk your hands up onto your ankles or your feet for happy baby. Give yourself a nice break and sigh out through the mouth. Maybe you find stillness or a gentle rock from side to side. You could try a one-legged happy baby, so having one leg at a time, letting go of one to land on the ground, and then maybe switching sides, finding a one-legged happy baby. When you're ready, we're going to find figure four pose. So this could be with the supportive furniture or without. Now, I think in the class before this, I showed pigeon. So if you know you love pigeon, feel free to insert that one here. That can be a controversial one, so I'll leave that up to you. Since we're already on our back, if you want to just scoot yourself to a place where you can find support. So I'm going to use this bed here. Since it's a fixed place that's not going to move, I can put my feet up on it so that the feet are in 90-degree angles, so the knees are bent. And then go ahead and extend your legs long. Maybe take a moment to rotate the ankles. And then we'll find figure four by bringing the right ankle on top of the left thigh, drawing the shape into the body, and then we can get a nice stretch through the hip. If you prefer to do this from a chair as opposed to on your back, it's really just crossing one ankle over the other thigh, isn't it? And imagine you're seated in the same shape. And what I love about doing this, with support is traditionally people are hugging their hands, weaving them behind the thigh. But this way I can just rest my whole entire torso. See if you can start to tune your awareness into your breath. And maybe you can use your creative imagination to circle your hip joint with breath. As you begin to settle, can you allow your breath to soothe you, letting go of any tension or holding? When you're ready, we'll release the side, extend your legs long. Once more, rotate your ankles, and then we'll find the other side, bringing the left ankle onto the right thigh, drawing the shape in towards the body, and breathing into the left hip now. Allowing your breath to calm you and soothe you. And when you're ready, you can release the side and then just take a moment to rest with your legs up the furniture. You could shimmy your body even closer so that your sit bones are pressing up against the furniture. And just allow yourself to find some rest in this moment. And we can think of this gentle inversion of legs up the furniture or legs up the wall as a way to turn our perspective around. Kind of like in the reading, allowing ourselves to stay curious and know that we don't know, cultivating a beginner's mind, seeing things from a different perspective. Take one more nice deep breath wherever you're at. And then we're going to move into a bit of a restorative shape. And I want to give you a couple of different options for this. So you might roll off to the side. And then if you do have some supplies, some blocks, maybe you want to reach for those blocks and or a blanket or a bolster. So we are going to do Supta Baddha Konasana, and this one means a reclined bound angle. So for this one, I like to take the blocks and make a little platform. So you could have it a little bit higher by making kind of some stair steps. I have one block on the high setting, one on the medium setting. Or if you want it a little lower, maybe more stable, you can have one on the low setting, one on the medium, and this is going to get you closer to the floor. And then you can take a pillow or bolster like I have and make a nice ramp for your back. And then you're going to shimmy your sit bones, your, I guess, really your sacrum actually, right to the back of that bolster setup. And then you can bring your feet together. And then for the blanket, especially because my feet tend to get a little bit cold, this can be nice. And you can give yourself some support. So I'm going to take the blanket and roll it up like a long burrito, maybe more of a taquito. And I'll lay the middle of the blanket on top of my feet, wrap the other ends underneath my knees. So that gives my knees a little bit of support. And then you can go ahead and lean your body back to rest on your platform. If you don't have props for to make the platform, you could always just come to lie on your back instead. This just kind of gives you like a little throne, maybe a nice comfortable chair. Allow your arms to rest at your sides. And just remembering that everything is optional, so you could just include your regular Shavasana here instead. Closing down the eyes or softening the gaze. Let yourself melt into the support. Softening through your face, your cheeks, your jaw. Let your shoulders melt away from your ears. See about softening your eyelids. It's time to intentionally rest into support. You can continue resting right here, or feel free to move into your final resting position of choice for Shavasana. We can't be afraid to look. We need our hearts and our eyes open to look at every ripple of disharmony we experience.
if we hide the picture and reality from ourselves, how can our hearts grow? If we close our eyes to every if we close our eyes, or our very lives rest on a false foundation, we can't be afraid to look. The guideline of Svadhyaya invites us not to shut the unpleasant parts of ourselves away, but to carry them with kindness and compassion, knowing that God lives there too. When Gandhi was interviewed by a reporter who asked him if he ever got incensed or outraged at his oppressors, Gandhi solemnly replied that no, he didn't, because he knew what existed in the interior landscape of his own being. He was not afraid to look at the fullness of emotions inside himself. And because of that fearless act of witnessing his inner being, he was able to maintain courage rooted in kindness and compassion. Gandhi knew that denial cuts us off from the full reality of ourselves. There is a Cherokee story in which the grandfather is explaining to his grandson that two animals live inside his heart, a wolf and a lamb. When the grandson asks, "What is he to do?" the grandfather replies, "Feed the lamb." We can choose to grow ourselves into someone more compassionate and kind to both ourselves and others. We must be willing to look at the selfishness and greed and anger that lie in us, but feed the greatness. Engaging in curiosity and a beginner's mind, knowing that we don't know, helps us step outside of our neatly wrapped boxes as we shift our attention to the God self within. The boxes of belief systems begin to fall away and we become free. You can begin to deepen your breath now, starting to wiggle your fingers and your toes. Gently begin to rotate your wrists and your ankles. And then take a nice long body stretch, maybe sighing out through the mouth. And go ahead and roll onto one side, finding yourself cradled there in a fetal position. When you feel ready, go ahead and press yourself up into a seat, inviting your hands to meet at your heart center in a gesture of gratitude, Anjali Mudra. Go ahead and let your head bow towards the wisdom of your loving heart. It's such an honor and a privilege to have this time to guide you through your practice. So thank you all so much for being here with me today. Feel free to stick around if you have thoughts or questions about class.